So, as people are coming in, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. As always, this conversation will be recorded. So, if you come in later, or if your internet is going in and out and acting a bit crazy, you can always catch. Yeah, it's perfect. You can always catch the replay. So, let's get into it. Are you guys ready? Let's go ahead and talk about the number one question that I get and that I hear, and that I've also asked at one point before. And that is, how do I know I'm not going to choose the same type of person? Or, as the title is, how do I avoid choosing an abusive relationship? So, if you've been following me, then you understand the importance of words, the importance of uh, being intentional in what you say, right? So, when I say that, it was very important that when I created this title, I didn't say, why do I keep getting into bad relationships? You know, I didn't say, why do people just keep finding me? Why do I keep attracting these negative people? No, I said, why do I keep choosing abusive relationships? So I already know what you're thinking. I didn't choose to be mistreated. I didn't ask to be abused, and no one does, and no one deserves it. So I want to make that very, very clear. But as a survivor of domestic abuse, as a survivor of narcissistic abuse, I want to relay the importance of understanding that you still do have some power. And one of the biggest things that we feel when we are in an abusive relationship, we've just come out of one, whatever it is, we feel powerless, right? And that's why the question comes up, because a part of us is saying that I'm afraid that I might choose the same type of person because I don't trust my decision making. I don't trust my ability to recognize a negative behavior trait, or poor character, or something that is not good for me in that person. And because of that, I'm afraid that I might choose the same person again. Right. So, really, what you're saying in that moment is you have learned not to trust your instinct. You have learned not to follow your intuition. If you were in an abusive relationship with a narcissistic person, the biggest tactic that they did was manipulation and gaslighting. And we talked about future faking. We talk about gaslighting. We talk about how that negatively impacts your ability to reason, your ability to think. You begin to self doubt. And unfortunately, when we leave these relationships, or that person leaves us, whatever way it ended, there is still self doubt that we take with us. We still have the effects and the impacts of manipulation, abuse, gaslighting, future faking, smear campaigns, right? All of those things that have been piling up over the years, or months, or weeks, or however long you were with that person. If it was your mother, if it was your sibling or family members, not always romantic, if it was a boss, you have learned to shrink yourself to fit into that relationship. So quite naturally, when you come out of this, your life is upside down. You don't know your left from your right, and you're trying to figure out, I don't know what that was, but I want to make sure I never get into that again. Right? Is this resonating with anyone? I want to make sure that I do not choose the same type of person again, because I can't do that anymore. I barely made it out of that alive, and I know if I do this again, that'll probably kill me. I felt that way before. Understanding that before you even worry about choosing that type of person again, what you need to really pay attention to is, what is some self work that I can do, that even if that person comes into my path, comes into my life, I'm going to recognize those red flags, and I'm not going to ignore them like I did before. Every person I've talked to, myself included, can think back to a time. I can think back to the first date. And I knew on that first date I should have walked away, but I kept giving second chances, because a lot of us will try to find the good in that person. So we ignore the red flags. We see them more as a yellow flag, right? Like, let me slow down and just see what's going on and give them a second chance. A red flag means stop, do not continue, abort mission, and turn the other way. That is what a red flag is. So Why is it then that when you see a red flag in a person, when someone does something, says something, and it doesn't, you can't describe why it doesn't feel good. It seems like a little jab. It may not even be a big blow up, but it's something in you that's like, I didn't like that. Why do you then continue to allow that person into your space? That's the real question. Is it codependency? Do you feel like I need someone? I don't know how many women are watching this or if men are watching this, but I know I can say as a woman, we so often collapse our timeline because we feel we don't have a lot of time left. And I work with women from their 20s to their 50s or 60s. And I tell people, male or female, I don't care if you only have a week left of your life. Do you want to spend that last week in living in hell on earth? And that's the mindset that we have to get into. Are you getting into these relationships, these friendships, these situationships because you feel like you're running out of time? How different would your decision making be if you felt that you had an endless amount of time, if time was not an option? I rushed into my marriage because I felt like I was running out of time. I wanted to hurry up and have a kid, right? All my friends were getting married. I felt like it was something that I had to do. So I ignored every red flag. I ignored all of them. I thought, in fact, that I can just change those flags eventually to green flags. Eventually, if I do some work and show that I'll be by your side forever, that those red flags will change and you'll realize that I'm actually here for you and I care about you and I love you. When in reality, that person just ends up resenting you. It doesn't, you don't really benefit from that, from being a martyr, as I like to call it. So, if the question that you're asking is, how do I avoid choosing these abusive relationships? The question really is, or what it should be, is how do I learn to trust my instinct? How do I learn to trust my intuition? And not only trust it, but how do I learn to follow it? Because many of us can say, I something told me, or I felt long ago that I should have done that, or there was something she said that I shared about my personal past, and they brought it up to hurt me, but I just, let it go. What does it take for you to recognize your gut? Because the body keeps score. Recognize why you feel anxious around that person, why when you're not with them, you're worrying and you can't figure out why. You feel like you need to be around them at all time. If they're ignoring your text messages, like ignoring your phone calls, you go into a frenzy instead of acknowledging that you don't deserve that. That it's okay to have space and not always be attached to your phone. But when someone is icing you out early on, that's not okay. When someone is uh, using you or saying that it's your fault that they are behaving in the way that they're behaving, why you then try to fix it. So these are a lot of things that many of us have experienced. A person doesn't change overnight. A person doesn't one day be an amazing person. They're a genuinely good person, and then they wake up and decide, no, I don't want to be a good person today. I'm just going to be terrible, and I'm going to do whatever I can to hurt you. Unfortunately, that person had ill intentions from the beginning, and you sensed it, but you chose to ignore it. So, what will it take you to trust your gut, to trust your instinct, and not to ignore the red flags? Do you trust yourself? If you don't trust yourself, the question then is, why do you not trust yourself? And how can you trust anyone else if you don't trust the person who knows you the best, which is you? So, acknowledging just because you came out of a relationship that left you feeling powerless, that you are in fact powerful. You're so powerful that you relinquish control, you relinquish power to make them feel more comfortable in your presence. That's typically what happens in an abusive relationship because it's all about power and control. It's a power struggle. And once you started to realize that, well, when I behave this way, when I speak up for myself, when I question things, when I don't agree with what they want me to agree with, They see that as being combative. So I've learned to be quiet. I've learned how to navigate these landmines so that I don't blow up situations. You've relinquished your power, but it doesn't mean you're powerless. It just means now you're trying to figure out, how do I get my power back? How do I stand up for myself? How do I set boundaries and enforce them? How do I trust my gut, recognize a red flag, and not give someone the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 100th chance to hurt me? Once you get to the point where you say, Paula knows best for Paula, you will no longer ask, how do I avoid choosing an unhealthy relationship? Because